right. I already started it. Can you see it's going?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Hello, Tina. I'm kind of starting from scratch here so you can see how to roll out the crust. And the recipe I gave you is easier than the one I'm about to roll out, but this one's cheaper and faster to make. So, all right, we're gonna go get the dough. You will have refrigerated it, and I think it says in your recipe, which is my favorite recipe, to refrigerate it for 30 minutes. You definitely want to do that. All right. So this is just for one crust. I just made a half of it, but you're going to end up with a bigger piece of dough, and you're going to cut it in half. The instructions are there. Okay, so I roll out on wax paper. That's just the way I've always done it. So come over here. So we're going to wet the counter so the wax paper will stick and not slip. So I just do a little this action. See how little water there is? You might want to get close. But anyway, there's not much, right? All right. You can't see that water. All right. So now you can see how it is going to stick. And here's my flour. I'm gluten-free, so I don't want to breathe any of this. I might die. Not really. So I like to flour it pretty generously. You will too when you do it. That's how I do that. This is a really bad rolling pin. Doesn't even stay together. But this was made by my mom's brother in shop 60, 70 years ago, so I still use it. Okay, so I've got that prepped. Here's the dough. Ta-da. And with your recipe, yours is easier to roll out, okay, than this. With this one, for some reason it sticks more. It's made with cheap Crisco like I always used to use. The new recipe you're going to use is a lot of butter, which is better for you, but it still has Crisco, so you'll have to buy Crisco. So I'm just going to kind of start from the middle and try to roll outward kind of equally. So you kind of like, it's a hitting up. You don't have to hit either, but you can see it's already starting to stick. That's because I don't have a very good roller, and it's because it's this recipe. I don't think you're going to have to do this as many times with the recipe I sent you. But so I kind of push off all of that dough that's stuck, and then I put more flour on like that. And then I just keep going until it's big enough around to go in the pie pan. See, you're not going to have to stop this off, and this is ridiculous. That's why I just went nuts when I saw that recipe. Plus, I wanted to quit eating so much Crisco because I don't believe it's actually edible. I think it probably just goes straight through. No nutritional value. But you're getting the idea of the action for rolling it out. Getting it into the pie pan is really what I wanted to show you. Anybody can figure out how to roll it out. And the nice thing about that recipe you're going to use is it's going to be plenty big enough. Whereas this recipe is barely enough to fit in the pan and top it. So this is going to be your bottom. Okay, so let's say that's big enough. And I'm going to use one of these Faco pie tins, only because it'll fit with this recipe really well. Okay, here's the trick. This is the trick I wanted to show you. So you want to fold it in half and then lay it in half over this and then open it up. So the way to do that, I don't know how close you are. Are you pretty close, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, I've got it in half, and then I'm going to gently peel this wax paper off to this point. I slide my hand, well, I don't really slide my hand under it. Look, that broke off. And then I just flop it over like this. And then I put it onto my other arm. And then I lay it in the tin halfway-ish. And then I gently grab the top and flip it over like this. So, I will warn you that on the recipe that you've got, it can tear more easily than that. It might tear. If it does, all you have to do is just piece it together with, like, say you had a hole. You could take this and come on over. Just pat a little, just pat a little water on it and patch your hole. So if it rips in half, you know, squeeze it together, patch it together, whatever you want to do. So then, of course, you go in and lift up a little bit and make sure you press it down into the corner of the pie tin. All right. Because you really don't want any, yeah, thank you, there's going to be, like, trust me, there's plenty of food in those drawers. You don't want any bubbles to speak of, but it's not the end of the world. I doubt when you get all that apple and filling in there that it will have formed bubbles. Okay, now at this point you're going to put your apple, you know, I will have mixed, the way my recipe works, Mom's apple pie recipe works, I've got all the raw apples, and then I mix in the sugar and cinnamon and spices, and then, oh, the sugar, cinnamon, spices, and flour go together. So if I have 5 apples, I use 5 tablespoons of flour. That's just my thing, and it usually then isn't too runny when you open it up, when you know, cut it. What else I wanted to tell you, so this is ready to go. Then you're going to put your apple stuff in there, and then you're going to roll another crust at that point and throw it on the top, cut some holes in the top, and then let's pretend that we have a, let's pretend we have everything full, we have our top crust on. When you go to put your top crust on, before you put your top crust on, what you could do is just put a little water around the edge, and that'll help seal it. But you know, frankly, I've never had it run through there, so I don't know. But anyway, that was what I was told to do. Let's pretend we have the apples in there, we have the top crust on there, and then we're going to make the edge look nice. So what I do is I just go along and I hold my fingers. You might need to really get close for this. And I just kind of cut the crust about at where that crease is in my finger to kind of judge and make it somewhat even. So I'm going to go all the way around like that. We're pretending that the pie is all put together and the top is on there. Sometimes it's a little short, and if it's really short and you have trouble getting it in there, again, you can patch this outside edge before you do what I'm doing right now and make it kind of so you have an even edge. So I'm just preparing it so I can flute the edges. Guess we should have light if we're going to do YouTube videos, right, Bob? So then we're going to, let's go over here in the light. So then we're just going to fold that edge under somewhat evenly. All the way around. Some places are thin and some places are really thick. Those will be the parts that people probably leave on their plate. Pie crust is something that you just get it together. You do not knead it. You do not work with it. You try to work with it as little as possible. And the way I flute it is I just put my knuckle here and then I put my 2 fingers there like that. So it just kind of goes like that all the way around. Once again, we're pretending that the whole pie is together and both pie crusts are on there. There are many fancy ways to do this stuff, so I don't know what those are. I've seen them in pictures, but yeah. It's possible that you have a pie plate that's really huge and you can't get it to go all the way up to the top, or it won't stay up there. Then don't worry about a fancy edge. No biggie. Okay, so that's kind of how that finishes off. The main thing too is, because of the recipe you're using, the last thing you're going to put in is the ice water. So what I do is I put I have like a 2-cup measuring cup I put the ice in there, it gets all cold, and then I pour out the amount of ice water it says. I think it's a half a cup. Don't quote me on that. The last thing you're going to do in the food processor, when you've mixed all the flour and butter together, you're going to pour that water in there, drizzle it in as you're processing. Just try not to put too much water in, because it'll be sticky dough and it'll just be harder to roll out. But the food processor does it all for you. You do not have to worry about crumbing it. You don't have to worry about overworking it. Just as soon as it forms a heavy ball, and like I said, it sounds like it's going to break your food processor, then you're ready to dump it out and put it in plastic and put it in the refrigerator to cool for 30 minutes, and then you just do what I did. I think you'll have no problem. Now let me show you one other thing. Let me just rinse my hands off, because I'm getting that poisonous gluten everywhere. Patty wants some pie. Okay. In your baking world, in your house, you might have one of these dudes. And you could use this instead of the wax paper, and it sticks to your counter automatically. And you can, flip it over and half your dough, just like I did with the wax paper. So if you happen to have one of these, feel free and use it. I just showed you what I have used since I was a teenager. So that is my little lesson on rolling the pie dough and getting it in the pie plate, and I wish you luck, and I hope you will call me.